Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And as you can see, my voice is a little bit deeper than it normally is. Caught a little bit of a cold. I have no idea from where, but it's the holidays. And a lot of times, when you hug people, and I'm a hugger, I'll say that I probably, got something somewhere. I'm feeling a little bit better, but yeah, it's going to take a minute for my throat to catch up. But with that, let's get to our kids' corner.
The newest toys and the coolest clothes, but today, something went wrong. During recess, Tom accidentally knocked Brad's new basketball into a puddle. Brad was furious. Tom said sorry, but Brad refused to forgive him. "You ruined my basketball," Brad yelled, pushing Tom away. Brad couldn't let it go. He kept thinking about how unfair it was, but his anger made him feel worse. Later, Brad saw Tom playing with others, laughing and having fun. That's when he realized, was it really worth staying mad? Brad took a deep breath and walked over to Tom. "I'm sorry I got so mad. Do you want to play?" Tom smiled, and just like that, everything was okay again. Sometimes forgiving someone doesn't just help them, it helps us too. Forgiving others makes room for more happiness, friendship, and fun.
Yes, it does. So let's make sure, right, that we're doing better towards one another. Get myself back on screen here. Yeah, because forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for us, right? Keeps our hearts in the right places. So, with that, let's get to honoring God with our body. So, God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So, I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears and help me listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family and faith. God, please protect my reproductive organs and help me to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet as I walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And if you are joining us for the first time this morning, that is a prayer that we try to say daily here on the show. I do my best. Nobody's perfect. So far, I've been able to do it every day, right? Fingers crossed, do the right thing. But, there may come a day where I might forget. So I'm grateful right now that I'm not forgetting and that we are doing that prayer daily. And thank you to everybody who is joining this morning. So today we're going to get into some trending topics on X. Let me get that all set up so we can get into it. Let's see. Is internet going to be agreeable? Yay, internet's agreeable this morning. So, Florida mandates English only driver's licenses exams for safety. Well, yay. Because how does somebody get a driver's license and they cannot read, write, or speak the language? Like, how is that a thing? You can't read English. You can't writing. You can't speak but you have a driver's license? Huh? And here's my thing. However they got the license, they need to go back to the person who took the test for them, and that person needs to go to federal prison. Not like jail, federal prison. Like you need to be in prison for like 15, 20 years. Like this needs to come with some serious consequences because you're putting everybody else at risk. Everybody. So whether that's being done by an independent person, or sometimes it's even done through the DMV or driver of motor vehicles, however they label themselves. I usually use DMV because that's in California. And I think they have DDS here in Georgia. Yeah, there needs to be some consequences. So on February 6, 2026, Florida ended multilingual options for non commercial driver's licenses, knowledge and skills test, requiring English for written, oral, and road exams. Yeah, so this wasn't happening. And it's still not happening in some states. It's crazy. So officials and supporters like Governor Ron DeSantis and Representative Greg Stubbe argue it boosts safety since road signs are in English. Yeah, following similar rules in South Dakota and Wyoming. Critics highlight barriers for immigrants in areas like Miami Dade, noting no clear data ties multilingual tests to more crashes, while other states consider matching the policy. Look, oh my goodness, why is this not a thing everywhere? We are an English speaking country. I do not care if you don't like it, you can go back home. That's where I'm at. If you do not like speaking English, you can go back to your country and live there. But if you're going to be here, you got to be able to read, write, and speak the language fluently. Period. Like, what are we talking about? Oh my goodness. It doesn't lead to more crashes. They just can't read English. Huh? How are you even getting the license? Oh, because it's in your language. Oh, no, that should never be. They need to stop that. There should be one form. Like in California, if you go to apply for social services, there's like maybe 16 pages in back of the application in other languages. Yeah, for driver's licenses, no. You look, if you cannot read, write, or speak the language, you shouldn't be given anything here in this country, period. Because that means you don't need to be here. How did you even get here? Huh? How did you get here? Now, people always say, well, what about refugees? What about them? Huh? They're not getting anything. And here's my thing for refugees and asylum seekers, we need to change the standards. You need to be able to get a job here if you come here. You need to be able to speak the language if you come here. Well, what about people from war torn countries? They need to go to the next available country to them that speaks their language. They should not be coming here. Now, a lot of people may not like that. They be like, well, that's kind of hardcore. It is. Enough. Enough. We are either a nation of laws or we're not. We're either a country or we're not. At a certain point, you have to just say no. So Florida just went full English only. Driver's license exam will be in English only. Florida is the first state to axe the multilingual madness. No more handing out licenses to invaders who can't read a single road sign. Assimilated and okay with it. So I want to say there was a woman, she was removed from her job. I forget where it was. It was either like in Maryland or Virginia or somewhere. It was somewhere in the Northeast. She was fired because she wouldn't process illegal immigrants for licenses. She was like, this is illegal, what you're doing. She pointed it out to the whistleblower and they fired her. But if she would have kept her mouth shut, she was going to get paid to basically give these people licenses under the table. Yeah. Yeah, that's what's happening. It's disgusting. Let's check this out.
Florida is becoming the first state to only give their driver's license exams in English. It was just announced that starting on Friday in the state of Florida, all DMV tests, including those for 18-wheeler licenses, are going to be administered in English only, and you will not be able to bring a translator. This includes all printed exams in Spanish, Haitian Creole, and other languages will be completely removed. You are only going to be able to read, write, and understand English if you want to get a license in the state of Florida.
Good. So they're removing the whole translator situation, which is good. But they're also going to have to check people for earpieces and cell phones. Like you can't have any electronics on you to help you translate none of this. None of it. If you cannot read the language, if you cannot speak the language, if you cannot write the language, you're done. But this should have been done from the beginning. We shouldn't be. People have been doing this since what? Late 70s, early. Look, I'm glad we got there, but it took a long time to get here. That is insane. Food pantry fires employee over TikTok on downed airman. Ooh, what's going on? So April 3rd, 2026, an Iranian missile downed the US F-15E over Isfahan. The pilot was rescued quickly, but the weapon systems officer hid for nearly 2 days until U.S. forces um, extracted him on April 5th. Thank goodness. With over 150 aircraft in special ops, Melissa Halverson, an admin at Michigan's Green Apple Pantry, posted a 20-second TikTok gleefully commenting on Iran's bounty, which drew massive backlash on X for anti-military sentiment. The pantry fired her on April 9th, stating her views did not reflect their mission and they have zero tolerance for hateful behavior. Ooh, okay, let's check out what is going on.
When you're at war with somebody, guess what that other country does? Exactly what they've been doing through history all this time, right? You take them hostage and you use them for leverage. So guess what Iran did? They put a bounty out on his head, and whoever finds him gets a great award. I can't wait. Hopefully it's like money or jewels. I hope the person who finds him is very poor and ends up being very wealthy, and I hope Iran holds their promise. When you're at war
Wow,
with somebody,
that's it's sad, that this is where her heart is. But unfortunately, and then no, it's not unfortunately, but fortunately, we live in a country where you can have freedom of speech. You can. You can freely disagree with the military. You can freely disagree with with the president. Yes, are her sentiments, misplaced? Yeah. Should she have been fired? No. And that's my opinion. And here's why. Because even though I don't like what she's saying, she still has the freedom to say it. She's not threatening anybody, right? She's not disparaging and saying, hey, off with his head or, do anything with him. But she has the right to say what she wants to say. Now, people want to drag her on social media and do it because look, you made a post, ma'am. People are going to come for you. But I don't think she should have been fired. I honestly don't. Because she does have the freedom to say something, even if we don't like it. And see, this is where freedom of speech really comes in. You have to have the ability to say, I don't like what you're saying, but I don't think you should lose your job over it. Like there were a lot of people that lost their jobs over the passing of Charlie Kirk and what they said about him. Now, in the instances where people were threatening, right, they were like, well, other people, should come to the same peril. Paraphrasing what they said, but that's threatening. But if somebody is laughing about him passing away, that's their reaction. We have freedom of speech, even if you don't like it. You got to protect it, even if you don't like it. So it's, wow, they put her whole name out there. Okay. Melissa Halverson, the leftist Michigan woman who made a video celebrating the possible capture and death of a downed U.S. airman at the hands of Iran, has been fired from her position as an administrative assistant, at Green Apple Pantry. And some people, when they're working, in jobs, they don't really consider being a reflection of that company. And we now, in my opinion, from like my mom's generation, let's say in the 60s and 70s, they've attached you to the company. So you are now like an ambassador of the company that you work for and that you represent. So you have to be a good representative. And I've seen some policies, some HR policies that are like, they go into it, social media posts and different things like that. Like you almost have to measure who you are when you work for certain companies because you are a reflection of that company. And if she's working for a pantry, I mean, you're going to come across people of all different faith backgrounds, all different political backgrounds, right? For or against. So, is there a discussion at where she works? You got to be measured in your responses. Maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, they're saying at Green Pantry, we are committed to fostering and welcoming respectful and inclusive environment to our neighbors, staff, and the broader community. The views expressed by a former employee's social media posts are solely those of the individuals and do not reflect the beliefs, principles, or missions of the Green Apple Pantry. We have zero tolerance for hateful or discriminatory behavior in any form. Now, they saying that's their position, right? Like I said, with some of these companies now, you can't just do what you want. And you've basically signed a contract with this company. If you have, then yeah, you have to be measured because you could lose your job. Some companies don't have that, right? So we remain dedicated to serving our community with integrity, respect, and care. And we appreciate your continued support and trust. Again, I don't think that she should have been gone after for her freedom of speech. But if they have a policy in place where you just can't do whatever you want to, then she signed up for that, right? And it needs to be made clear what you can and cannot do. Now, here is another one. Clay Fuller wins Georgia 14th District runoff after Green resignation. So Republican Clay Fuller defeated Democrat Sean Harris 55.9% to 41.1%, in Tuesday's runoff for Georgia's 14th congressional district, holding the GOP line on a seat vacated by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Fuller credited Donald Trump's endorsement as key to his 12-point victory, while Trump celebrated on Truth Social and took shots at Greene, his former ally, amid their feud over Epstein files and foreign policy. The district remains a Republican stronghold, though the margin showed a notable Democratic shift. Fuller now finishes Greene's term ahead of November's full election. So he's going to have to run again. So depending on the job that he does between now and November is going to be very telling. But he's still going to have other challengers in November for that seat. So Donald Trump's post reads, Marjorie Trader Brown's Greene turns to Brown under stress. Seat in Congress has been taken over by a wonderful and talented man, Clay Fuller. And there are some people on the ground, I should say, I know they don't really care for him. So whoever came out for him, they just wanted a Republican in the seat. They didn't care. Because it's not about liking this person right now. It's about keeping a Republican in the seat, if that makes sense to anybody out there. Who won conceivingly and right from the beginning, despite many people running for that Trump plus 37 seat, and despite the stench left by Greene. Ooh, congratulations to Clay Fuller, a very large improvement over his deranged predecessor, President Donald J. Trump. Ouch. Downtown ouch, bro. Okay, see how you really feel. My goodness. I had no idea. But this is why I've told people, I do not support the president. I like his policies, and here's why, because the seat is what I support, the seat of the United States president, not the person in the seat, because the person in the seat changes every 4 years, right? We do not have a monarchy. The same person doesn't sit there till they die. Now, unlike Congress, right, which is a true oligarchy, which is crazy. But you cannot, in my opinion, you cannot just support the person in the seat, because if you do that, you're not really representing the people that sent you there, right? The people sent you there to make sure that you are representing them as a voice for their district, not to be a voice that supports the human in the seat, because the human in the seat's going to leave. So what happens in the next 4 years when it's a different person, right? Are you just following behind every person? Or are you protecting, right, the status of that seat and what governs that seat, and the Constitution that governs whoever sits there is doing the right thing? It doesn't matter what their policies are, because you might disagree with all their policies if you're in the House or the Senate. That's fine. But why? Is it because you're more concerned with the person in the seat? Or are you really looking at who you're representing and what they need you to do while you're there on the Hill? And I think that's what a lot of people have gotten away from. They've gotten away from the why they're even there in the first place. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sophia and Sarah Jane and Theo O'Gravity. Good morning. Okay, so thumbs up to everybody joining me this morning, early on this Thursday. It's Mighty Men Thursday. It's an open mic. I'm hoping to have a guest on in the 8 o'clock hour. We will see. We will see. But now let's get to some of our updates. I've got a update from Promethean on I know this whole ceasefire, it's like it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. So let's get a little bit of an update from Promethean.
Night, President Trump posted this.
A big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Big money will be made. Iran can start the reconstruction process just like we are experiencing in the U.S. This could be the golden age of the Middle East.
Iran chose civilization last night for the first time in 47 years. A nation that the empire condemned to a dark age has a chance to walk off that chessboard. Donald Trump gambled on civilization and won the first round. Now, here's what the war party wants you to think. They want you to think that Trump just let Iran off the hook. Netanyahu warned Trump against this ceasefire. Lindsey Graham is calling for congressional hearings. Well, they're all wrong, and the fact that they're not happy is the proof. I'm Susan Kokinda. I've tracked the imperial great game in the Mideast for decades. What you're watching in Iran isn't another chapter in their post-war system. It's a direct challenge to it. And if you want to follow this civilizational fight, then hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons so we can stay in touch and keep growing. Here's what we're covering today. What President Trump actually did in Iran and what the war party's reaction tells you about it. What Vice President J.D. Vance said about civilization in Budapest and why he contrasted it to the nihilists. And President Trump's call to the astronauts about taking civilization to the stars. Now, here's what the president posted on Truth Social about the ceasefire announcement. I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. We have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. And then Trump.
Now, that post was as of April 7th, so it's April 9th, so I'm just going a little bit back in time.
Did something extraordinary. He posted Iran's own official statement confirming the ceasefire and the opening of the strait. He amplified Tehran's acceptance, because this isn't an enemy being crushed. It's a country beginning to choose civilization. Now, to understand why that matters, you have to understand what the Mideast has actually been in the imperial great game. The British Empire built it as a cockpit of war. They created the Muslim Brotherhood, the mother of Islamic extremism. They simultaneously cultivated revisionist Zionism. And then they played Arab against Jew, Sunni against Shia, nation against nation. Iran was drawn into this architecture in 1953, when British and American intelligence overthrew Mossadegh. His crime? He wanted to use Iran's oil to develop the country. By the 1970s, the Shah had launched an aggressive program of industrialization and modernization. So the empire reached for its oldest tool, religious extremism. The mullahs replaced the Shah, theocracy replaced development, and civilization reversed into dark age. Donald Trump looked at that 47-year-old trap and made a bet, not on Iran's regime, on Iran's people. He gambled on civilization. Now, let's look at who's not happy. Netanyahu warned Trump against the ceasefire before it happened. Lindsey Graham invoked the Libya model. That's not a model, it's a warning. Surrender your weapons or uranium and see what happens. In Libya, 8 years after they surrendered their weapons, a NATO-backed mob murdered Gaddafi. That's what the war party is offering Iran. Trump is offering something entirely different. But Graham made sure to get in the last word this morning. He posted, "I prefer diplomacy if it leads to the right outcome regarding the Iranian terrorist regime. That's why congressional review process like the one the Senate followed to test the Obama-Iranian deal is a sound way forward." Did you catch that? A congressional review process in the middle of live, delicate negotiations. Negotiations which, by the way, don't directly involve Israel. But President Trump is calling the shots, not Lindsey Graham. And he's offering something else entirely. But how did he get here? Not through NATO, not through the British, not through European institutions that have managed the Mideast misery for a century. Pakistan mediated the ceasefire with the involvement of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar were in the room for the Gaza negotiations. These are sovereign Muslim and Arab nations that the empire spent a century playing off against each other, now acting as partners for peace. And Trump's Board of Peace was built exactly for this. Now, let's not forget who's not at the table. The Strait of Hormuz has been for generations financially managed through Lloyd's of London. Trump's deal to reopen it, brokered by Pakistan and including Iran, cuts the British financial architecture out of the solution entirely. The empire that built this cockpit of war is not present as it gets dismantled. That's what a civilizational gamble looks like when it starts to pay off. Not NATO, not London, but sovereign nations choosing to build instead of destroy. The golden age of the Middle East. That is the civilizational offer, not the Libya model. Now, this isn't done. Talks will continue Friday in Islamabad with Vice President Vance likely leading the U.S. delegation. And the war party will work overtime to blow it up, but the structure is in place. If you're beginning to realize that this is a lot bigger than just the Middle East, and that it's part of a fight that can bring down the imperial system, you need to subscribe to Promethean Action's free newsletter. We will give you the tools you need to be part of that fight. So head on over to our website and subscribe. So while the Iran deadline was ticking down, Vice President J.D. Vance was in Budapest, standing next to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who is facing a re-election bid. And he didn't mince words about what this fight is about.
I'm not here primarily, Victor, because of the economic cooperation between our countries. I'm here because of the moral cooperation between our two countries, because what the United States and Hungary together represent under Victor's leadership and under President Trump's leadership is the defense of Western civilization, the defense of the idea that we are founded on a certain Christian civilization and Christian values that animate everything from freedom of speech to rule of law to respect for minority rights and protection of the vulnerable.
The vice president talked.
Now I'm going to pause there real quick. Because made was that there was like an over religious or a theocratic mindset in Iran. Like, we can go back to some of the arguments, and people were like, well, they're based in religion. Okay, I appreciate Vice President Vance. Don't bring religion into this. You can say that, although not perfect, the United States does their best to maintain, right, civility, right? We do our best to maintain, a moral compass that does right by humanity, right? We can word it like that. But when you start throwing in Christianity, which is more so a religion, right? Because Jesus calls us to be disciples, not Christians. Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Check it out, the Great Commission. Look, stop making this about religion, because when you do that, you muddy the waters. You're no better than Iran when you do that. You aren't. You are supposed to be the Christian that stands up and does what's right, regardless. Okay? But you cannot set the moral compass on Christianity, especially from the United States, because we have freedom of religion here. Everybody here is not a Christian. Some people are Muslim, some people are Buddhist. Some, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's got a different thing here. So are you representing the United States, or are you representing a specific religion? Now, I know he was trying to walk it back a little bit. Well, yeah, that guides our morals. Stop bringing religion into this. Now, a lot of people might get upset with me. Well, it's Armageddon. And look, at a certain juncture, you are going to have to stand on principle and policy, right? You as the Christian person are just supposed to do what's right. When you bring God into it, you don't force God on other people. That's why we have freedom of religion. Some people are atheists. They don't believe in God at all. And if you are trying to manipulate people with God, that's even worse. I'm just saying, there has to be a point where we stop and really think this through. Do what's right. And stop trying to manipulate people using God. That's all I'm saying.
About civilization, not trade policy or military alliances, but civilization itself. And then Vice President Vance named the enemy and the stakes.
Now, under Viktor Orban's leadership, you have held on to the civilizational goods that make a country worth living in the first place. Sovereignty, prosperity, history, a sense of national community, the redemptive nature of bringing new life and new families into the world. You have stood up to the bureaucrats. You have stood up to the nihilists.
Nihilists. That is the precise word. Not just bureaucrats. Nihilists are people who reject any higher purpose to civilization or any universal principle beyond power and rules. That is the imperial system stripped to its core. And Viktor Orban, who's been fighting the Brussels machine from inside Europe for 15 years, attacked the nihilist cultural ideology of the Europeans and their continued support for the Ukraine war. He said, this is more than just irresponsible. This is equal to suicide. Suicide, let that sink in. It connects directly back to Iran. The Brussels machine and Washington and London's war party are the same force, two faces of the same imperial system. Both depend on permanent crisis. Neither believes in the future or in the dignity of man. And Trump is refusing to give the empire what it wants. He gave Iran the civilization choice. And at last year's Munich conference and again in Budapest, Vice President Vance has made the same offer to the Europeans. You can build and you can believe in the future. And for the most concrete image of what believing in the future looks like, you have to look up. While the world watched the Mideast deadline tick down, Donald Trump called 4 astronauts as they circled the moon. The Artemis II crew is the first deep space mission in 50 years, and it has taken human beings further than we have ever been before. They saw geological features on the far side of the moon that no human has ever seen. And President Trump put in the call to the astronauts.
And America is a frontier nation, and the 4 brave astronauts of Artemis II are a modern day, you really are modern day pioneers, all of you. Your mission paves the way for America's return to the lunar surface very soon. We're going all out. We're doing everything we can, and it's headed up by Jared. We'll plant our flag once again, and this time we won't just...
It's interesting that her hair isn't going all the way up and it's down. because there's no gravity in space. So I don't know what's holding her hair down to like right here. But I would think if you're in space, your hair is just like, like all the way up, kind of floating like that. So maybe she's got headphones on, holding her hair down. I don't know.
Footprints will establish a permanent presence on the moon and will push on to Mars.
A permanent presence. The development of human civilization on the moon and Mars, which is only possible because we as human beings can discover God's laws. Hold that next to what the empire offers. An 800 square foot apartment, renting everything, owning nothing, your carbon footprint monitored. One vision is a dystopian nightmare, the other reaches for the stars. Now, here's a little detail nobody is talking about. There is a Canadian on this crew, Jeremy Hansen. Now, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, the central banker, has been portraying Trump's America as a dangerous hegemon, threatening the rules-based order. But here's what the Canadian astronaut said.
A nation that leads like that and creates and sets big goals for humanity that brings other countries along with it is truly incredible. And I know that's a very intentional, not a necessary decision, intentional decision to lead by example and to allow other countries like Canada to share our gifts and help you achieve these mutually beneficial goals, like establishing a presence on the moon and eventually going to Mars. And Canadians are so proud to be a part of this program.
A Canadian astronaut praising American leadership for bringing sovereign nations along as partners.
Okay, I got another thing. She's wearing glasses. How would the glasses stand on your face? How is that possible when everything is weightless? Like, does she have like straps on? Are they strapped down? I don't know. I'm just asking, y'all. Just saying. It would seem like it'd be difficult to keep your glasses held on your face if you're in space because everything is weightless.
That's a far cry from Carney's efforts to build a rules-based opposition to Trump's America. Think about that. The narrative's empire is collapsing from every direction at once. In Tehran, in Budapest, and in lunar orbit. 3 times this week, Donald Trump chose civilization over empire. In Tehran, he gave a country that's been a tool of empire for 47 years a chance to become a normal country. And they've taken it. In Budapest, his vice president named the enemy, the nihilists, the managers of decline, who don't believe in the future or in universal principle. And to our astronauts in lunar orbit, he talked about going to Mars. That's the choice, civilization or dark age. The gamble is paying off. The question is whether we're building the movement that can hold those gains and advance. That's what Promethean Action is.
Yes, so definitely check out Promethean Action. And good morning, sassy lady. Good to see you. Appreciate you. Thank you for joining us here this morning. And Super Magnet Man. He says NASA is 100% fraud. I don't know. I just have questions. I'm sorry. I'm like, glasses are weightless. So like, why isn't her hair kind of like up? Like seriously, like straight up. Maybe they didn't like the last lady that, they kind of did her hair up, and it looked like they almost like hairsprayed it up that way, because your hair would naturally, so it would look like if you were underwater, if that makes sense to anybody. If anybody's been underwater, your hair tends to just float naturally because you're in the water, and it just kind of sways back and forth, and you would think that's what her hair would do, but her hair only lifted to like right here, not all the way up, just right here. You have no headband on, like, and your glasses aren't floating off of your face. You can have glasses on your face in space, like that. There's certain things that stay like locally in place. Nobody's necklaces or chains are floating all around. Like, there are certain things that are weightless. I'm sorry. That's just me. You guys don't have to get into my conspiracy theory mind. I'm just saying there are certain things that happen. Now, the ceasefire has been on and off. It's been on and off. And this is just my opinion. we are kind of watching the negotiations out in the open. I think, with previous conflicts, obviously with World War II, they had messaging, but not in the way we have it now. And with the Smith Modernization Act, we can actually be propagandized as the United States. So they can kind of tell us whatever they want to unapologetically. So, what is the truth, right? But what I've seen with all the back and forth is that people keep expecting Donald Trump, or President Donald Trump, sorry, to be this politician. He's not. He's a CEO. If anybody's ever worked for a large corporation and you've been one of the people to sit around the board table and see how these heads of companies deal with one another or deal with negotiations, they're pretty hardcore. You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't realize it's like it's a lot that goes on. And so all this back and forth that we're seeing, this is a part of the negotiations. And we're seeing it play out in real time. So when people say things, it fluctuates the market. Okay. And a lot of people are like, are they saying this on purpose? Are they not saying it on purpose? There's all this back and forth because we are seeing the negotiations in public. A lot of this stuff happens in private sometimes. But in this instance in particular, Donald Trump, or President Donald Trump, is not a politician. I think I need people to get there. He is a hardcore CEO. Yes, he is cussing people out at 11:30 and he's asking you at 11:45, when is lunch going to be here? Just like he just didn't cuss you out like 5 minutes ago. Okay? Because the day keeps moving and the work keeps going. So you have to be top of mind with that. They're expecting him to be like this, person that's like politically thinking, years down the line, I want to look like this. He does not care. Okay. He is a bull in a china shop running the United States like a business. I'm going to need people to get there. He is not crazy. We do not need a 25th Amendment. Calm down. He is a CEO. Stop trying to fit him in the role of a politician. CEOs, hashtag newsflash, they don't care about your feelings. They could care less. Now, does he probably say things to manipulate the market? Probably, because he's a businessman. I'm not going to say he doesn't. But I think people need to get on that mental road that he is a CEO. He is not measured in what he says. He says what needs to be said from his viewpoint and vantage point. So they're like, why is he going back and forth? Because read the book, The Art of the Deal. Maybe some people need to go back again and read that book. Because I read all 6 of his books when he got elected the first time. Because I need to know, if I'm going to vote for this person, I need to know who I'm dealing with. And I was like, you know what? As sure as the sun rises and sets, he's been true to who he is. But everybody else has not gotten there. He is a CEO. He is not a politician. He never will be. Ever. Okay? He's not Obama. He's not Carter. He's not Biden. He is a CEO. And at the end of the day, he does not care about your feelings like that. He just doesn't. Get over it and figure it out. Now, is J.D. Vance a lot more measured? Yeah, because he's a politician. Period. He says things in a measured voice with a lot of diplomacy because that is who he is. And he balances Trump out sometimes because Trump is wild. Again, CEO. But y'all need to get there. I'm just saying. Just get there. But I wanted to play a video from Melanie King. I have another video from her, but she did a short after she did the video, so I didn't want to kind of backtrack with her video. So I'm just going to play the short, but I will attach the long form of her video to the after, my post after the broadcast.
Finish my video, guys, and as soon as I went to go check X, well, take a look.
Breaking, the IDF has launched strike campaign against Iran due to repeated ceasefire violations. As you see, the ballistic missiles are raining down over Tel Aviv in particular, but all over Israel right now after this ceasefire was agreed upon. But there's more. It appears as though IRGC missile units currently in communications isolation are implementing a pre-approved plan to destroy energy infrastructure in the Gulf under the assumption that Trump's deadline has already expired, unaware of the announced ceasefire. Now, like I told you, the Ayatollah's plan it's like a mosaic plan is what they're calling it, where even if the leadership dies, he dies, everyone dies, well, they have splintered into 30 different factions, the military working in coordination, but there is no one leader that can agree really to everything. And so could there be some rogue groups? I mean, if you have 30 different factions, you just need a couple of them to not agree with something, and it's still going to be going on. And finally, both the United Arab Emirates and Qatar have stated that they have dealt with Iranian waves of ballistic missiles and drones since the ceasefire went into effect. I told you guys, I don't think this ceasefire is going to really do anything. I think it's a temporary measure for the markets or whatever. But there's a lot of players on the board that have to agree to things, and there really is no agreement even within the Iranian military, with any military at this point. So yeah, wild times. We're going to have to wait and see, like I told you in the video.
Yeah. Wild times. Yeah. That's what's going on. It is pretty crazy, but I definitely appreciate her feedback in that, because I was like, wow. Okay. And she also brought up in the video that she was talking about that she had just finished, she talked about selective service. And I wanted to touch on that really quick before I get into our next video. Let me see. There we go. So apparently there was an automatic selective service. Now, this was put in place actually at the end of last year. It was passed. And she had done some videos on this. Melanie King did. And so I said, can you confirm the latest bill passed by Congress to require those over 18 to register to serve in the military? Yes, Congress passed, and the president signed into law a provision in the fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, that changes how selective service registration works for men. So what the bill does, it requires the selective service system, not the person, the system, to automatically register nearly all male U.S. citizens and male immigrants ages 18 to 25 up to 26 in some references using existing federal government databases. This replaces the previous system where individuals had to proactively register themselves. So usually when you would go to get a driver's license or vote, there's a section that says, are you a male age 18 and up or 18 to 25? And people had to check the box, right? And by checking that box, then they were registered into the selective service by choice, right? That was the choice. Now they don't have that choice. They're just automatically popped in there, period. If you are a male and you and you're there, not by identification, because you could still you could be a man identifying as a woman. You were still born a man. Okay, you're on the list. I'm just saying you are automatically put in there. So the effective date, the automatic registration system must be operational by December 18, 2026. So that's this year. So until then, the old self-registration rule still applies. So it's still, you got to check the box, right? But at the end of this year, it's just going to be automatic. Doesn't matter. So it was signed into law last year. on the 18th. And so the most significant change to the selective service since the self-registration requirement began in 1980, it aims to improve compliance and completeness of the database without requiring action from eligible men, though there will be a process to opt out or correct records for those not required to register, such as non-immigrant visa holders. So interesting. Non-immigrant visa holders. Okay. So people that are here on a visa, but they're not necessarily here to stay here, right? Because there are some people that just work in the United States. They never plan to become citizens of the United States, but they're here on a visa working. When I used to work at Porsche, that those individuals would fall under that, right? They would not be registered for the selective service because they're not planning on becoming citizens here. They're just working here under a visa, just to use that as an example. So this is not a new requirement to serve in the military. Registration has been mandatory for men, again, in that age group since 1980. The bill only shifts the burden from self-registration to automatic registration by the government. So those are the changes. It's mainly going to affect men 18 to 25. The penalties for noncompliance. Under the old system, failure to register could lead to fines, loss of federal benefits, or other issues. With automatic registration, the focus shifts away from individual penalties for not registering yourself. So no draft in 2026. Multiple sources confirm there is currently no active draft and none is being reinstated by this bill. So obviously with this conflict going on, people are concerned, are you going to put a draft back in place? Because there was a draft during the Vietnam War. Now, there were people who didn't go. I think, was Donald Trump one of them? He might have been. He might have been one of them that didn't go. But Elvis didn't go, and nor did Muhammad Ali. So there were a lot of people who refused to go. Now, those people either lost benefits or they were stripped, like the Muhammad Ali. He was stripped of his title. He had to work his way back up. With Elvis, he wasn't stripped of anything. I think he couldn't perform certain places for a certain amount of time. Some things did happen to him, but it wasn't completely devastating, right, to his life. But there were certain things that he couldn't participate in. So what's going to happen now? Because like I said, we got men identifying as women. It's interesting. So here's some of the penalties. A criminal penalty, if it is a federal felony under the Military Selective Service Act, it could be a fine up to $250,000. Now, these are for people who knowing and willfully fail to register right now, right, without the automatic registration. Because up until this year in December, you still have to do it yourself. It's still manual. Imprisonment up to 5 years or both. Administrative penalties, ineligible for most federal jobs and many state jobs, ineligible for federal training jobs like Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which would be your unemployment, ineligible for state-funded student aid in many states, which would be your Pell Grants. For immigrants, possible denial or delay of U.S. citizenship. So if somebody's on the pathway to being naturalized, which is kind of crazy, but up to a 5-year delay in some cases, or other immigration benefits. FAFSA is no longer tied to registration. So I just wanted to bring that up for you guys. Okay. Sorry, got a little bit of something going on. Oh. Okay, let me take a quick break because I've got a guest that's going to be coming on. So I got a little bit of technical difficulties to deal with. But thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Lineage, legacy, leverage. Genealogy is the lane. Community is the destination. But care, that's how we get there. At TBAT Task Force, we don't just research history. We reclaim what was stolen. For Black American descendants, proving who you are is the first step toward reparative justice and recognition.
Get 4 hours of expert research, a verified certificate, and a care-based session to guide your next steps. A $155 contribution doesn't just fund your search, it fuels 5 community positions. It's a cycle of growth.
Ready to claim your history? Start your journey or book a free care call today. Your legacy is waiting.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. My guest is having a little bit of technical difficulty. That's why I needed to take a quick break. So hopefully they will be joining us soon. But let me get into another topic that I wanted to discuss. I feel so bad for the people of New York. And I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but apparently there are some states that are charging something called an exit tax. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. Very, very interesting what's happening. So let's check this out. Let me get the video up and playing. I was like, what is going on? So you're going to charge me a penalty if I leave your state. That's what this is. This is kind of crazy.
Blue states are exploring an exit tax or wealth tax in order to combat revenue losses from residents fleeing to lower tax areas. At least 10 have recently explored proposals, including California, Michigan, and Washington state. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joining us. And we know it's not just notable high net worth people, Jeff, that are leaving these tax states, but also businesses like Chevron and Uber. Tell us more.
So major corporations, financial firms, and also people continue to relocate their headquarters or operations from high-tax states like California and New York to more business-friendly areas like Texas and Florida. The move's coming as more blue states explore these wealth and also exit taxes. Across the country, at least 10 states are now exploring or have already passed an exit or wealth tax in order to combat revenue losses from residents fleeing to lower tax areas. That includes California, New York, and Michigan.
Tally up the value of your home, your cars, your furniture, your assets, your stocks, your bonds, your art. And there is a tax on that value.
Sandra Swirsky, founder of Integer, a government relations and advocacy firm, tells the National News Desk, among the most prominent, California's proposed Billionaire Tax Act, which would impose a one-time 5% tax on the total net worth of anyone worth over $1 billion living in the state, impacting at least 200 people.
The value of these assets, of your net worth, in some cases is very easy to calculate, stocks and bonds and the like. In other cases, it's really difficult to calculate.
Also, Washington State, who just passed a 9.9% tax on incomes over $1 million. The bill's passage coming around the same time Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, who has an estimated net worth of over $3 billion, announced his move to Florida.
Not just move himself down to Florida, but he's moving his entire company, Starbucks, out of the state of Washington. That's huge.
JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon taking a swing at New York City officials this week, saying high taxes are causing a surge of businesses to leave the Big Apple. Quote, "The truth is that while New York City has much going for, particularly for financial companies, it also has the highest city and state corporate taxes and the highest individual income and state taxes." Thoughts Dimon echoed about a week ago.
All you have to do is look at California versus Nevada. You know, New York versus Florida, and there's a huge exodus taking place.
Meanwhile, New York Governor Kathy Hochul acknowledging that the state's tax base has been heavily impacted by an exodus to low-tax states, urging wealthier residents to come back.
I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state.
Okay, hold on. Did you hear what she just said? She says, I need people of a high net worth to come back to support the generous social Who told you to be generous with social programs, ma'am? Nobody made you do that. You did that. You've put your state in a horrible position financially, and you want somebody else to pay for it? Like, that is horrible. That's horrible leadership. So let's finish this out.
But maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded.
Now, according to the most recent IRS service data from 2022 to 2023, due to migration from blue to red states, California lost just under $12 billion and New York $9.9 billion, while Florida gained $20.5 billion and Texas $5.5 billion. A researcher also finding a massive population shift, with data showing from 2024 to 2025, California lost nearly 230,000 residents. Reporting for the National News Desk, I'm Jeff Harris.
Yeah. Look, they're going to keep losing money because here's the deal. On the federal side, they know they're going to lose some of that funding because a lot of the people that are there illegally, number one. The NGOs are going to stop receiving that money, that federal money, right, to support that base that they've created. And they keep saying, well, people that are here illegally, they're not getting federal benefits, but they are. They're getting it through the NGOs. And now the federal government's gotten hip to that. And they're like, we're not giving you any more money. So we're going to do state funding, right? We'll just give illegals from the state. We've got all these rich people here. So we'll just tax them to oblivion to pay for these people who shouldn't even be here in the first place. Right. So let's go back to New York. Right. And I have a special guest with me here on Mighty Men Thursday. I've got Mr. Derek Gibson, and he's actually running for governor of New York. And I'm glad that he's here because I wanted him to talk about what's happening in New York and really what his plans are to turn things around. So let me bring him up to the stage. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am well. Yourself? Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. I can hear you fine. So I know you just heard that clip.
I most certainly did. And it amazes me how the Democrats put policies in place and then end up destroying the financial system of a state. And then they go about going against those very policies that have caused the state to be in the financial area it is at the present moment. It's kind of hilarious hearing them say, but she's against right now raising taxes on people leaving. I did a little research on that, which is correct. I agree with her on that. But sitting on that begging them to come back out the policies that you supported that ran them out of the state makes no sense. And you want to give away these free programs. And once you realize the people that create jobs, the millionaires, the billionaires that own the companies there that employ these people, once they upsetting you, overtax them and push them out there, what is going to happen? There's no one there that you can count on to get large amount of taxes from. So we're at a state in New York at the particular moment.
Yeah, because nothing's free. And I think that's what people need to realize. Like the socialist mentality, right? It's like, well, you can do free schools, we have all this money. You actually don't. But you need people working these jobs. That's where the tax breaks come in. But it's really for Americans. Can you talk a little bit about what you would do about the illegal immigration, right? Because there's a difference between legal and illegal immigration. Because right now it seems like the state of New York is going under trying to support illegal immigration instead of really handling that.
Absolutely, and we've been speaking on this before. New York City is never recovered from bankruptcy years ago. It's still officially in bankruptcy. So what we are doing, we are pushing it further and further into debt. As you know, the state of New York has about, I would say, this financial year was 245 billion. I believe that was the number 245 billion for the budget for the state of New York. That is a lot of money. And the reason so is because of the illegal aliens here. We are housing these people, we are feeding them, we are educating their children. We take care, I think we spend about 70 or 80 million on health care for those people. So these people in charge, which are Democrats in the state of New York, have been in charge for a while now. They are not good stewards with the taxpayers' money. We must turn things around so we can be good stewards of taxpayer money. You asked me a question: what would I do about the illegal aliens? We would no longer be a sanctuary state nor a sanctuary city. I have some plans uh, in my war chest to do for the state of New York to bring it back to, I would say, normalization, because it is gone. It's basically like a communist ran state, and it penalized the people that actually work and pay taxes, and it's taking their money, and we're taking care of citizens from other countries that haven't contributed anything to the state of New York or to America itself. So I would work with ICE, rounding those people up regardless. So I don't care about whether you committed a crime after you got here. You committed a crime illegally coming across my border. That's where the crime was committed at. So you must go. Day one, I will implement policies. I will implement things so ICE and the courts and our jail system will allow ICE into the jails also to get these people and get them out of the state of New York. Where they go, I don't know. Really don't care. Go back to your country you came from. But that's not my issue. My issue is to take care of the citizens of New York State, make sure they are educated, make sure that they don't have to sleep on the street. As I see day after day walking in Manhattan and Brooklyn, I see all the homeless people laying on the street, and it hurts my heart. So we must do something about that, and I will do something about that on day one. And not only that, the former mayor Eric Adams, if you remember, he went to Guatemala and other places in South America. He
Right.
came back. He still did not change his mind about the illegal aliens, which would be about $12 billion a year in the state of New York.
Right.
So this guy allowed them there, upheld the sanctuary policy of former Mayor de Blasio. We're going to have our citizens get murdered. I will hold those people responsible. The mayor, the former mayor, will be held. I will direct my attorney general to investigate and hold him accountable for the murder on the train. The young lady got set aside because our leadership allowed this. If you hadn't allowed those people into our state, into our city, we wouldn't have this going on. So that's accessory to crime. I got a lot of things that I need to do to clean the state of New York up, which I can do, and do it quite rapidly with the state legislator. If this, we can change the state legislature and get common sense people that is going to make laws and policies.
Right, right. Because right now, Mandani, he is. Yeah, there's another situation that I've heard of that he actually wants to tax people based on their race. You know,
Right.
he wants to go after white people to create equity for blacks. I'm like, why are you? First of all, why are you using blacks for equity? Right, when that's not the case. You want this for people that are here illegally. You know, he definitely is against the 287G, right, policy. that would actually help ICE to round up these individuals, saying, okay, we don't want ICE in our courts and we don't want ICE here. And I'm just like, okay, you have an overinflated budget. You're already at a deficit. You're trying to rob people's pensions to pay for it. And now you want to overly tax people based on their race. Like it is wild, some of the things that he's trying to implement. Now, he's trying to implement. I don't think he'll be able to. I really think the city council will kind of push back against it. But what do you think about the tug of war if that will happen, once you become governor? Because I'm speaking this one into existence, because if people keep Hochul in office, stop that.
Well, it won't be a tug of, it would definitely not be a tug of war. And to go back to what you were saying about Mondani, the mayor, Mondani is there to destroy not only New York City, New York State, but he's here to help destroy America. He's a plant that is there. I did some research on him. As you know, my background is law enforcement. I did research on this guy. He lied to get here. I will look into that and have him removed. The governor of New York has the power to remove the sitting mayor. So I will look into that. Any infractions he will be held accountable for, and he will be removed, and he will be deported from the state of New York. You hear me saying this today, and it's things that I see that you don't see. So as governor, he will definitely be removed after a thorough investigation is done and the facts come out. I would not hesitate to move him. As a black man, it's a disgrace to hear him say he wants to tax any other human being just because of skin color. That makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it's ridiculous. Just because skin color, you're going to tax this person. Okay, you're a white guy or you're whatever, we're going to tax you more. I mean, that is illegal. That don't pass the test at all. So it's not going to be implemented, but it's foolery to even come out and say, suggest anything of the kind.
Yeah, I want people to look at Cuba and Puerto Rico. Those are socialist countries. How are they doing? They're not doing well.
When you run out of other people's money, then what happens?
The only people that live successfully in socialist situations are the people that have money. Nobody else. If you've got money, you can survive socialism. If you don't have money, you cannot survive socialism. I'm just saying. That's usually how it works out. It's not, opium runs out other people's money. It does. So I'll let you have last words and let us know where we can find you and support your campaign.
Well, I'm doing a shock and awe campaign. A lot of people know I'm running for governor, but I did not jump into the race on the Republican side, the Democrat side, because it's just the GOP of New York State. I'm a staunch Republican and been all my life, never been a Democrat. Looking at the New York State GOP is very weak. It's I would say it's an arm of the Democratic Party, and that's why Democrats rule everything. It's sellout. So I say I'm going to get into the race at the last minute, like several people have done across America and won their race. The people do not mind writing somebody in that thinks it's going to be beneficial for the policies of New York State. So that's why I decided to do a shock and awe. I did a lot of studying. I'm about to come out in another week or two. I got my RV wrap, so I'm basically ready to jump in. I'm the redemption party because we definitely need redemption, not only in New York State, we need it across America. And I urge everyone to do a little research on the redemption party and let's go. Let's kick this thing off. Let's get it huge. Let's blow it out the water. And tell your people in New York State, New York City, that I am running for governor, and they can find me on Twitter, Facebook, all across social media platforms. And I'll be holding my town hall starting 2 weeks from now, and I'll post the schedule. Thank you for having me on this morning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. Yeah, so that is Derek Gibson, everyone. And definitely, as he said, check out the USARedemptionParty.com. That's USARedemptionParty.com. We are looking for servants of the people, not politicians. And he is definitely a servant of the people. We want to see what can be done better, right? Because like he said, the GOP there in New York City, New York State, sadly, are just another arm of the Democratic Party. You know how some people say the same is as two wings of the same bird? Yeah, they look different, but are they really different? Are they really flying differently? Some people say no. Some people definitely say no. But I want to get into that video that I had mentioned about Mayor Mandani's policies that he wants to bring about. It's very interesting.
I am genuinely afraid for New York City. Zohran Mamdani just announced his racial equity plan, which fulfills his campaign promise of increasing taxes on white people and giving the money exclusively to non-white people. And I'm not exaggerating. You'll hear Zohran actually say that the problem is white people own too much stuff, so he's going to use government-sanctioned racial discrimination to solve the problem. But despite being one step away from the conditions in South Africa, where angry violent mobs indiscriminately target and attack white people and steal their property because the government supports it, Zohran is begging that white residents stay in New York because he needs their tax dollars to fund his efforts to steal more of their stuff. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but let's start with Zohran saying, hey, white people own too much stuff, so we have to steal it.
The inequities in this city, the racial inequities, are stark. We are talking about findings that have shown that the wealth of a median white household in the city is more than $200,000, while that of a black household is less than $20,000. This is not an indictment of any one New Yorker. It is an indictment, however, of policies and politics that have persisted for far too long. Our commitment now is to act upon these findings, to do so in
So you're saying that policies have helped white people make more money? It's just a weird conversation because there are black households that probably do making the 200,000 because you got to make some of that money. But see, they'll consider somebody with a melanated skin black. Like some of these people standing behind him with melanated skin, like what country are you from? Because some of y'all don't look like Black Americans. You look like you're melanated from other countries, but you don't look like a foundational Black American or a Negro. So who are you talking about? And why are you gonna tax? This is crazy. Let's finish it.
Concert with New Yorkers' comments, as we've now opened a public comment period for the next 30 days to ensure that we have a city where we are reckoning with the long history of racism here and starting to act upon a framework that puts equity right at the center of it. Thank you.
So a rational person who actually wanted to help the black community become more affluent would probably say, we should work with Donald Trump to help facilitate deportations. That would open up all the entry-level, low-skilled jobs that Americans at the bottom desperately need to begin climbing the economic ladder. But instead, Zohran decided the way we fix this disparity is to actually make white people poorer. And he comes to this conclusion not because of a failed understanding of economics, but because he is completely fueled by racial animosity against white people. Do you really think if Muslims were the majority of America and were the richest citizens in America, Zohran would still be fiercely fighting for Muslim wealth redistribution to the poor white minorities? Okay, but we've heard Zohran explain the problem. White people have too much money. Now let's hear him explain what his solution is.
And while today's true cost of living measure confirms that the affordability crisis touches every corner of our city, we know that these effects are not applied evenly. So often it is black and brown New Yorkers who are hit the hardest. This preliminary racial equity plan is the first step in developing a whole of government approach to tackling that reality. It is a plan that lays out these first steps to solve decades of neglect and discrimination, and it places the work of 45 city agencies within a singular framework.
What's ironic about his grievance is all the policies that have harmed black people for the last 60 years have all been progressive policies. Progressives were the ones who cramped black people in public housing projects and got them welfare dependent. It was progressive feminist policies that convinced women to replace their husbands with the government. It was progressives who spread and promoted degeneracy through the media, the entertainment, and the music. It was progressives who dropped Planned Parenthoods on every single corner in the black black inner city. It was progressive soft on crime policies that led to a lack of economic opportunity because businesses can't operate there safely. It was progressive sanctuary policies that allowed illegal aliens to flood black communities and then undercut whatever remaining jobs there were. But despite the staggering decline of the black community over the last 60 years, Zoran is trying to convince them that that's because government just needs to get more involved. So now Zoran has illegally commanded 45 New York City agencies to have one sole mission: making sure government tax dollars benefit everybody except white people. It's so blatantly illegal, it's not even debatable. But the scariest part is they know it is. They don't care, and they're doing it anyway. But let's hear from one of Zoran's associates on the podium explain why this is so necessary.
This plan was born during a defining moment in our city's history, when New Yorkers were in the streets in the midst of a global pandemic, calling for justice, demanding accountability, and bearing witness to brutality unfolding on our streets and on our screens. In that moment, our city was asked to reckon with the deep systemic inequities that have long shaped life here and to do better. New Yorkers across all 5 boroughs answered that call. Their voices, their advocacy, and their persistence are what brought us to this moment. The release of the preliminary citywide racial equity plan is a reflection of that collective mandate. It is not just a document, it is a commitment to confront institutional and systemic racism within our city and to begin the work of dismantling it.
So based on these deep systemic inequities that she referred to, you might believe that the majority of New York City's budget goes to the benefit of white people. But here's an unsurprising yet staggering chart that paints the true picture. This chart represents New York City benefits per $1 of all taxes paid, with white people as the baseline. So white people receive 3 cents in benefits per $1 contributed in taxes. Asians receive 22 cents per $1. Black people receive $1.77 per $1, and Hispanics receive $1.95 per $1. So despite there being no empirical evidence to support the claim that non-white people are systemically underserved, a Ugandan mayor, 2 black people, an Indian man, a Hispanic man, and
Okay, and let's talk about all those people he mentioned. They usually check the box of white. they don't check the black box. Okay, and how are you getting $2 of a dollar? Like what? The math is not mathing.
2 Asian women have unilaterally decided that the governing doctrine for New York City is we don't like white people and we're stealing their stuff, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. People need to understand, when the left says America is on stolen land, they mean it. They're not being hyperbolic. These indigenous land acknowledgements aren't symbolic virtue signaling. They're a public declaration of an insurrectionist ideology that does not believe America is legitimate or has a right to exist. They fundamentally view the United States of America the same way they view South Africa. White people in a place they shouldn't be and on borrowed time till they get sent back home. They believe America's prosperity was acquired through exploitation, and now it's time to return that wealth back to the peoples of the global South. And just to remind you, this is exactly what Zoran Mamdani promised he was going to do during his campaign.
And realize there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed.
So no plans to change that language on your website?
The focus here is to actually ensure a fair property tax system, and that the use of that language is just an assessment of the neighborhood.
Zoran refused to exclude the racial element of his plan because the racial element was the point. And the reason this should frighten everyone is because what's happening in New York City is coming to a town near you. What's happening in New York City proves if you allow an enclave to form with a high enough concentration of third world immigrants from places with grievances against America, a candidate can easily win running on a platform of racial hatred. But the same people Zoran wants to steal from and punish, he's begging to remain in New York City so he can have their tax dollars.
Amidst
being in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we already see an exodus of working and middle-class New Yorkers. So I don't have a hesitation in asking those who make the most amount of money in the city or the most profits in the city to pay a little bit more so that everyone can actually stay in this city. It's also something not...
Stop that. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're just going to steal from you. Okay? We're just going to steal your money so everybody else can be here and be somewhat comfortable. This is disgusting. But this is what people voted for. This is what they voted for. Crazy. And good morning, Spud McKenzie. Thank you so much for joining. And Uncle Coolwater, thank you for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. This is insane.
Not just about justice or the ability for working class people to live here. It is also actually about ensuring that corporations can continue to attract the top talent to this city. Because in a city where childcare costs more than $20,000 a year, I've heard from corporate leaders about how difficult it is for them to attract individuals who would work at their companies but want to raise a family.
The part that breaks my heart so much is black people have internalized their own victimhood so much and see everything through a racial lens. They've allowed the anti-American third world coalition to convince them they're on the same team. They don't even understand the only people on planet Earth with a little bit of deference, of understanding, of tolerance for black foolishness is white Americans. If in 50 years the ruling majority is a coalition of Indians, Hispanics, and Muslims, do black people really think their lives are going to be better? Do they think these groups that have zero historical connection or sympathy for black plight are going to be empathetic to their complaints of historical injustice?
Look, and let's just talk about how from some of those individuals, from some of those countries that he just mentioned, their ethnicity, they still have slave trading going on right now. Somebody was just bought, y'all, into slavery generationally. It's still happening. It's just not happening here, right? In the way that it used to, but there's still human trafficking. There's still sex trafficking, right? There's still slavery going on as we speak right now. And the groups that he mentioned, they do not like Black Americans specifically. They definitely don't like melanated people, even though some of them are melanated. They claim to be white, and they're not. Okay? It's crazy. But that's what's happening.
Justices and racism, they're shooting themselves in the foot because they've been conditioned to see white people as their enemy, not their countrymen, and government as the solution to all their problems instead of the root cause of their problems. None of the stolen white wealth is going to trickle down to the black community. It's going to be used to expand the governmental power of the third world coalition. And here's the last thing I'm going to show you to prove that that's the case.
And this fall, it is a center that will be transformed into New York City's first ever on-site childcare program for municipal employees. This is a site that will be 100% free with the childcare that it provides. It'll provide full day care from children as young as 6 weeks to as old as 3 years old. And on April 30th, these applications will open for every single worker in the David Dinkins building, as well as every single DCAS employee, regardless of their location across the city. This will be managed in-house by DCAS and operated by a contracted childcare provider that we...
So this isn't for everybody. This is just for people that work for the government. I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh. Shouldn't laugh. Taking the laugh back. But I'm just saying, it's not for everybody. We'll see who this gets extended to.
We will be announcing later this spring. Now, this is a building of over 1 million square feet of office space and more than 2,000 city employees from over a dozen agencies. Now, for too many of those employees, finding affordable childcare has long been one of the greatest obstacles they faced. And we never want city workers to have to choose between a job that they love and raising their kids in the family in the city that they call home.
So if the government wanted to spend money effectively and help the most amount of people, they would just pay the market rate $20,000 per year per child. Instead, they're spending millions to build a massive government daycare facility where the cost per child is going to be double, if not triple, the market rate. Because the goal isn't to spend money effectively to help people, It's to expand government control. And what you're seeing with this plan is exactly what you see in communist regimes all across history. Massive benefits and perks specifically for government bureaucrats, where everyone else lives like serfs and the only opportunity for prosperity, luxury, and comfortability comes from working in the government. We've already seen Zoran sympathize with 2 Islamic terrorists who threw a bomb at a crowd of protesters, so it's only a matter of time before we see Zoran endorse violent mobs to carry out the rest of his communist agenda. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video,
I feel so bad for New York. Like, I just, y'all, I'm so sorry. What's happening in New York? I mean, so I took the video and I really wanted to look at his budget, just kind of look at what's happening with Mayor Zoran Mamdani, right? And so overall, the budget size and context. So the preliminary budget for 2027 is 127 billion, right? It's not a simple year-over-year increase, the figure released in all reports, but it reflects inherited fiscal pressures from the prior administration, which I can understand that, because even Eric Adams kind of, he got to the point where, please stop sending people here, but you asked for them. Please stop sending people because we can't afford it anymore, right? He even said that. And even Derek Gibson, he was like, yeah, it's been upside down for a while. The state and the city have been upside down for a while. They're still in bankruptcy. It's very unfortunate. So the city faces a multi-year budget gap estimated at negative 5.4 billion. Some coverage cites 7 billion or up to 12 billion, depending on the exact time frame and assumptions. So roughly 40% of the budget goes to the Department of Education. Other major areas include public safety, social services, and infrastructure. So you've got almost half of your budget going to the Department of Education. The first thing you need to do for the superintendents is you need to lower their salaries. All the administrative salaries need to be lowered, but I'm sure they won't be. But I'm just saying, if you're going to save some money, like, that's the area, not the teachers, the superintendent, because the teachers actually need a little bit of a raise. And as I learned from the governor's symposium that we had a couple of weeks ago, the cities receive state funding as well as how they tax individuals at the municipal level for education. So their education budget gets 2 different hits. They get it from the state and they also get it from their local municipalities. So you're raising it. So you're at a 40%. That's just at your municipal level. That's your city level. Is that outside of the money that you're getting from the state? Yes, the math again is not mathing. So where raising taxes is needed, the 2 paths Mamdani outlined. Path A, tax the rich and corporations. Now, 2% income tax hike is roughly 33,000 high earners, primarily those making over 1 million or about 1 million a year, and major corporations. So if you're in New York City, you're being punished for making money. To me, it's a punishment. It's not a benefit when you were taxing people, overly taxing people, to give money to somebody else who's not working. You need to, and this is just my opinion, they need to remove people that are not here legally. And they need to be removed from the city funding. They need to be removed, period. This isn't sustainable. It's very crazy. So additional push to end the drain by fixing the imbalance what New York City sends to the state versus what it receives back. Because like I said, it does receive state funding, but it does have to pay taxes up. So everybody pitches into the pot and then you get a little bit back, right? New York City's like, we need more back than what we're giving. What? First of all, you're taking care of people that shouldn't be here. They should not be here. There is a legal pathway of entry, but we cannot have people here that aren't working, that are living off of state funds. That's a problem. You have to have people. And here's my thing, immigration laws need to change. If you come over here, even if you come over here legally, if you do not have a job that can sustain you, whether that's making 60, 75,000, 100,000 a year, if you do not have that kind of job, you can't come here, period, off the jump. And we're not going to have chain migration anymore. Like, there are certain things that need to be shut down. It is mind-boggling to me how people, they're just like, we deserve to be in America. No, you don't. No, you don't. And you shouldn't be. You want to benefit off the country, but you want to destroy the country at the same time. It's really crazy to me. Super crazy. It's a very abusive relationship that some people, their mindset, it's really weird. So this requires state approval, governor and Albany lawmakers, because the city can't unilaterally change personal or corporate income taxes. So all of these things he's talking about, he really can't even do it. I'm like, wow. So the goal, generate enough new revenue to close the gap while protecting lower and middle income residents. Mamdani argues the wealthy and profitable businesses should shoulder the cost of the inherited crisis. No, that's not how this works, sir. You should be bringing in more business. You need to be getting rid of anybody that's here illegally so that those that are here legally, right, and for those that are born citizens can actually work and improve the city's infrastructure, right? Because more jobs, actually, you got people paying more taxes, right? But you need to get rid of the street vendors. You need to remove all of that stuff. So people want to live in New York, right? And want to support the infrastructure that's there, because we've got veterans living on the street. But you're walking over that veteran to put in somebody who hadn't paid a dime in taxes here, definitely not serve with their lives here. And you want to give them food and shelter, clothing. Like, nothing makes sense. Now, the fallback path, plan B, if the state doesn't approve, is a 9.5% property tax on more than 3 million residential apartments and over 100,000 commercial buildings. This would be the first citywide property tax hike in 20 years. You know how you've seen those videos like, get your hands off of our taxes? Yeah, see, plan B is probably more than likely what's going to happen, because plan A is not going to happen. But yeah, they're going to tax the people that are already overly taxed to support people that shouldn't be here. It's crazy. So estimated to raise $3.7 billion, plus drawing down the city's rainy day reserves. Mamdani has called this more harmful long-term and has said he would only go this route if the state blocks millionaire corporate tax plan. Look, you're bleeding people. People are leaving. And the more companies that leave, that totally destroys your tax base. So what you going to do? What are you going to do when everybody that makes money is gone? Now, Steven Spielberg is like, I'm going to move to New York. That's great. Steven, bro, you have more money than you know what to do with. And that's fine. But not everybody wants to live like that, sir. So good luck. I'm just saying. Now, the equity racial wealth angle highlighted in the video is so crazy. The proposed property tax reform aims to shift more of the burden to expensive homes, properties in affluent areas, framed officially as creating a fair property tax system and addressing racial inequities, not a literal race-based tax rate on individuals. It still falls into that, because if the majority of people there identify, yeah, I just said that, identify as white, you're going to be taxing them. So you're going to be taxing the Indians that live there that identify as white, and those that are from the Middle East that identify as white, and those that are Latin descent that identify as white. Are you going to be taxing all of them? I'm just saying, because they identify as white. This is all going to come back on you. Just saying. The budget also includes funding for in for equity initiatives. That's so silly. So 5.6 million for an office of racial equity. So you're gonna put money into an office. You're gonna grow government and tax everybody for it to figure out why you have equity problems. Just spoken like a true socialist. I mean, just the mess this is. So the budget is 127 billion for fiscal year 2027. The city needs new revenue, $4.5 billion gap to avoid cuts or reserve raids. Mondani's preferred solution is higher taxes on top of the 33,000 earners plus corporate, right? Backup is a 9.5% property tax hike. The equity plan adds a layer of targeted property tax reform aimed at wealthier, statistically whiter areas to address racial wealth disparities. Exactly what the video calls out. It's just so crazy. So, okay. So I said where the increases to certain positions or added positions that added the increased budget. And what I meant by that is within his cabinet, let's just say within the city structure, is he increasing government and then taxing people to pay for that, right? So it says, yes, Mayor Zoran Mondani's preliminary budget includes several new or expanded positions and staffing increases that contribute to higher personal costs, part of the personal services category, which make up roughly half the budget. These additions occur alongside efforts to address chronic vacancies citywide and right-size staffing after the prior administration's hiring restrictions. So the prior administration, they had hiring restrictions because they were trying to save money in the city, right? So they wouldn't have to tax people. Shocker. Yeah, and this is why for the USA Redemption Party, fiscal responsibility, this is not fiscal, this is not being fiscally responsible, limiting federal government to empower local government. But the way you empower local government is not to grow it. It is to really look at the inefficiencies in local government and see what people need out of their government, right? And then effectively give services to the people so it helps them. But by growing government at the local level and taxing everybody to pay for it, you're not helping the citizens. You're really just ballooning local government. So sad. So the mayor's office, City Hall, hires plans to add at least 70 new staffers costing $10 million. This includes roles tied to priority initiatives such as an enforcer of economic justice with a salary of up to $200,000. What are you even doing? What kind of job is that? Is that a real job? Is that a thing? Enforcer of economic justice. I mean, what do? Do you go around telling people, yeah, you need justice for the economy? Like, what are you even doing? And you're getting up to $200,000 a year to do that. Like, this is a whole grift, y'all. This is what I see. This is my opinion. I'm just saying. So, staff for the new Office of Economic Justice and Office of Mass Engagement. What is that? 14 positions with six-figure salaries totaling nearly $2 million, including deputy borough directors, borough managers, leads, community liaisons, and campaign. So this is literally growing local government. We'll give everybody jobs. And we'll tax everybody to do it. As opposed to letting people be deported that need to be deported, right? And all of those job staffing agencies hiring Americans. There was a video that I played last year where there was a young Black man, and he went into one of those staffing agencies, and they said they couldn't help him because he wasn't here illegally. He is a born citizen of this country. And he was turned away, and he was trying to find work because he wasn't here illegally. I'm gonna have to find a video. I'm just saying. But that's what they're doing in New York. This is insane. So the law department, addition of 200 new attorneys plus 100 support staff, so that's 300 new people. This is explicitly budgeted at $38 million in the fiscal year, plus $5.3 million in fiscal year 2026, aimed at reducing tort liability, expected to save $125 million annually, and supporting affordability efforts. You're still going to be upside down, so you're going to, reduce tort, liability, save 125, but you're. It looks like, oh, we're only going to spend 38 million. Only? You're not saving money. You're still bleeding dollars. Department of Finance hiring 50 new auditors, projected to generate 100 million in additional revenue per year through better enforcement and compliance. So they're supposed to find money, but you still got to pay them. And they're supposed to generate money. We'll see. We'll see. You still got to pay them. Racial equity apparatus. So crazy. So the budget funds the Office of Racial Equity. Who is this racial equity for? Because, sir, look, you are not a race. You're an ethnicity. You're from Uganda. Okay? Looking at you, you look Middle Eastern. I'm not sure what part of the Middle East your background is from, but I'm saying you're not white and you're not black. So why are you bringing race into this? This is not a race issue, because a lot of the people that live in the city of New York can't play the race game because they're not black and they're not white. Now they can claim that status, which is in essence a caste system. But what are we doing? So 5.6 million annually, and the Commission on Racial Equity at 4.6 million, combined 10.2 million and 3 million, or 42% increase from the prior year. The office currently has a staff of 38, with the broader equity plan involving 45 agencies and over 200 city workers in development implementation roles, including anti-racism training, coordination, data work, and agency equity leads. This supports the new citywide racial equity plan. Okay, first of all, let's talk about racism, because racism, again, let me just give you an example. Are people being hosed down on the street for the color of their skin as a specific group? That is racism. If that is not happening, what are you talking about? There's discrimination and there's prejudice. Now, if you're looking at discriminatory hiring practices, it's very hard to prove, but we can have a nail shop full of people of one particular ethnicity. Nobody else is working there. Some are definitely not Americans because they speak a completely different language in that shop. And I'm just using that for an example. Are you going to, look at them as being discriminatory? Because that's what it comes back to. It's not racism. It's being discriminatory because they're not hiring anybody else. But yet those practices are allowed around the country. What are you talking about? It's the fallacy. And I'm not saying that people do not encounter acts of racism, but it's physical. And who's doing it and really fixing it? Because you cannot control people's feelings nor their actions. I do respect Hillary Clinton when she says you cannot legislatively make people feel a certain way. You can't. Now, you can put in consequences for their actions if people are harmed legislatively, right? But you can't tell people how to feel based on legislation. We live in a country where we supposedly have freedoms, right, of speech. What are we doing? What are we talking about? So I think this is all going to fall flat, but I will definitely make sure to link this in the repost, right? So you guys can see just how much money New York is bleeding. This is, are there any cuts that could be made to save the taxpayers money? Yes, several potential cuts and efficiency measures have been identified or proposed that could save taxpayers money in the 2027 process. These come from the Mamdani's administration's own savings plan, the city's council alternative response, independent watchdogs like Citizens Budget Commission and Comptroller and critics. The goal is to help close the remaining $5.4 billion gap without the proposed 9.5% property tax hike or heavy reserve drawdowns. So here's some savings, 1.7 billion proposed. The mayor directed every agency to appoint a chief savings officer. I guess 12 of them, and target 1.5% savings in fiscal year 26 and 2.5 in 27. Agencies submitted proposals. An initial $237 million slice has been publicly approved and the rest under review. So where did they save this money from? So 100 million, remove ineligible dependents from city employee health insurance plans. Again, this is government. So they're like, okay, we can do that. All right. Department of Education, 58 million trimmed so far from central offices, supplies, professional development, travel, underutilized contracts, spending caps. Okay. Potential for hundreds of millions more via delaying the state mandated class size reduction. Mamdani is seeking an extension. Full implementation could cost $500 million in 2027. So he still wants to keep it increased, but not really decrease. It's crazy. Rental assistance program, lower projected costs due to legal disputes and adjustments. So it's part of a $1.3 billion broader program scaling. Yeah, if you move people, if you tell people you have to go back to your home country because you're not here legally, I think that would help the rental assistance program. But we need to put American citizens in there that have already paid into the system. What are we doing? It's I feel bad for New York. Like I said, I don't know what they're going to do, but we need to pray for New York because my goodness. But thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for this Mighty Men Thursday. And thanks again to Derek Gibson coming on the show and just letting us know a little bit about his plans and what he will do as governor of New York. So remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.